Welcome back to another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. As always, I'm your host, Dean Simon, and before we get into everything, please make sure to leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe. We are still on that road to 2,000 subs, so if that's a journey you feel compelled to join, please consider pressing that big red subscribe button down below, and also turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on future Milwaukee Bucks updates. And the first one that we're going to talk about is that Kevin Porter Jr. is still rehabbing and making good progress and nearing that kind of injury return from his meniscus surgery. And that, according to recent updates from a couple of different sources, that it's going to be sometime in early December. So at least that's something that the Bucks have to look forward to, with Giannis being out for, of course, this extended period of time and then suffering through this losing streak after the fact. And probably the biggest reason that I'm excited KPJ is going to be coming back is that he will solve a couple of problems just as a little bit bigger of a guard that is great with his ball handle and kind of attacking the defense and getting inside the painted area and kicking out. He's really skilled in that area, but I think the most part of it is the assist to turnover ratio kind of stuff. It was an area of KPJ's game that I felt like he was really improving towards the end of last season and into the short playoff run, and actually especially in that short playoff run where his assist to turnover ratio in that series against the Pacers, I don't have the exact percentage, but he was basically averaging maybe 5.2 assists to 1.6 turnovers, somewhere around there. But it was excellent, and it seemed like he was a lot more decisive in his playmaking, and I felt like that was something that could easily translate to this season with having, again, Giannis by his side, but also Miles Turner being a guy that can effectively, or at least what we had thought going into the season, a guy that can effectively both pick and pop, and that would just give him a little bit more decisions to make, but easier decisions to make because more often than not, guys are going to be, two guys are going to be going with the ball handler to try and stop that, and stymie the drives to the basket instead of the center going out to the 3-point line to deal with Miles Turner, and even less often that they're going to be switching those kinds of plays. So Miles was going to give more options in that kind of area, and again, Giannis is the consistent screen and roll threat. But just aside from the passing playmaking part, just really excited to have a guy that's, and of course Ryan Rollins and Cole Anthony and Bobby Portis are guys that really pride themselves on their mid-range shooting. But it's good to have yet another guy that's not just focused on threes or layups at the basket. That KPJ is also a guy that can get into a nice pull-up midi and kind of make the defense not like, he's not catering to the defense by either choosing the three or choosing the layup. He is keeping them off balance because he can just stop and pull up for those mid-range jumpers. And he just has that in-between game that's very effective. So really, really excited for KPJ to come back. But something that we can talk about here, and I do understand that this is the second trade related topic that I've talked about in the past episode or two, and both of them are going to be coming from players on the Sacramento Kings, but it's just hard to look away from them right now as kind of the premier destination or organization that's going to be throwing up a fire sale pretty soon, at least according to numerous reports that, there's Domantas Sabonis that's probably going to be available. And there was that one from either Bleacher Report or The Athletic that was saying that every player on their team outside of Neek Clifford and Keegan Murray could be available in trades. So they do have a lot of solid veteran guys on that team that, of course, just don't work great together on the floor at the same time. But Russell Westbrook, I think at this point in the season, like through the offseason, I was thinking there's basically no way that I would like Russell Westbrook to be on this team. The fit with Giannis might be, way too clunky given the spacing issues that would create. But to this point in the year, I don't think I've ever kind of convinced myself that a Russell Westbrook trade could be, it could be an opportunistic idea for the Bucks. I've never really convinced myself that it could be more of a good idea than I have right now, because with the way, of course, that he's played for the Sacramento Kings to start this year, where it's 13.6 boards, 6 rebounds on efficient shooting. He's shooting 38% from the 3-point line, and through the first 10 to 12 games, it was around like 45%. Like he was just striping everything. He's had a much more efficient year than Cole Anthony, who has been the Bucks' resident backup point guard, of course. And Cole Anthony, I was just looking at the stats before, 26% on threes. I knew that it was down a tad from the past year, but I did not expect 26% bad. So Russell Westbrook, even in those areas where it's like, oh, well, Cole Anthony's a better shooter. Not this year, and not this year by a long stretch. But aside from the shooting, besides from the other kinds of things he can do with the basketball, he could just be another fantastic transition option, and of course, just a veteran that can help lead the locker room. But yeah, that transition threat, that was kind of the one main reason that you could point to from this past offseason being like, oh, maybe that's why it's a good idea to pair Russell Westbrook and Giannis on the same basketball team, just because the threat of both of those guys running full speed at you going coast to coast. There wouldn't really be many other pairs like it in the NBA, even with Russell Westbrook's age. He still has that fire, still has, a shade of that athleticism and obviously the intensity. So he would help in the transition attack, of course, in the playmaking. He's been an above average 3-point shooter this year, so that's a plus, though, of course, that's not really sustainable, or at least we don't think it can be. He would also help out in the rebounding department. He's been one of the best point guard rebounders of all time, and that even sticks to this year and this past year when he was on the Denver Nuggets. He's a fantastic guard rebounder, and there's one thing that you can expect from Russell Westbrook every single game, and it's that intensity. It's his ability to get into the painted area and kind of wrestle around with the trees down there for rebounds when you least expect it, and obviously he still has the body composition to take on these guys when he's driving recklessly to the rim. But of course, Russ is a guy it's headaches every other play and an amazing, oh my gosh, how did he pull that off moment every other play aside from that. So is that a headache that the Bucks would really want to deal with? Who knows? But if it would cost them essentially either Ajax or Amir Coffee, those guys make basically the same exact amount of money as Russell Westbrook, and Cole Anthony too, I believe, makes the same exact amount of money as Russ. Though I don't see a Cole for Russ trade on the horizon unless the Bucks are really just feeling crazy. But if you figure that they're willing to sell on a guy like Ajax, who could be of value to a Kings team looking to rebuild, looking to take in really any kind of young talent that has any semblance of promise. Maybe you throw them Ajax, you take back Russ in an even 1-for-1 swap, kind of, and you see if Russ can help impact winning for this team, because really, what other options do they have to this point? At least with their point guard play, because Cole Anthony, of course, has not really been up to par from a scoring perspective. Sure, passing the ball, he's been pretty great. But there are games as well where he's racking up 5 or 6 turnovers, and it just seems like he's not really able to get into the flow of things, and his decision making's off. So that's not saying Russell Westbrook isn't a turnover machine at various instances throughout a whole season, but it's just a possibility, and not saying that I'm 100% a fan of this idea, that I'm really pushing for it, just kind of throwing it out there that it, maybe is a possibility, and especially with all these rumors going around with the Sacramento Kings. So next thing we're going to talk about, or just mention a little bit, is that Doc Rivers was very, very honest recently about the Bucks' lack of ability to score the ball, and at least doing it in, they've been doing it in efficient ways, but not necessarily repeatable ways or sustainable ways. So his actual words were, and he actually kind of brought Ryan Rollins into this discussion as well. He said, I think we're really struggling scoring. Excuse me. They're taking Ryan Rollins out of it. We don't have the ability right now to get into anything else when he doesn't have it. I think right now we're easier to guard. We're trying to run too many pick and rolls. We don't get off the ball, so we're thinking about it. Um, I really don't think that that's necessarily a bad idea to not run as many pick and rolls. Of course, that would lead to maybe a couple less pick and fade opportunities for Miles Turner. But with the way that he's kind of been unable to shoot the ball in recent games, maybe that's not so bad either way. But maybe, and we're going to get into the Miami Heat in a second, but maybe taking after or taken from the playbook of the Miami Heat this past year and the kind of transformation that Eric Spoelstra has been able to do for them. Their offense is based on zero pick and rolls. Like, they don't set any screens. It's just drive and kick, drive and kick. We're going to send in a guy to fill in the space where this guy's driving to, and it's just going to be like a constant rotation on offense, and that's just how things are going to go, and it ends up resulting in great looks because all of their guys can shoot. Maybe you follow the same kind of path with this Bucks team. And I think the craziest thing going into this season, do you think that, or would you have thought, I should say, that 17, 18 games into this season, that Doc Rivers would be in a press conference or talking in some kind of post game media availability, and he would be saying, "Man, our offense is really struggling, and when opposing teams are taking Ryan Rollins out of it, then we really have no options." What would you have thought to yourself in your head when you saw that kind of like quote from Doc Rivers? But this is really that point in the year where if Ryan Rollins is not able to efficiently drive to the basket and create opportunities for others if he doesn't have his own shot, then the Bucks really have nothing. There's no movement at all. There's no, again, like I said before, like repeatable offensive attack outside of Ryan Rollins driving downhill, kicking out to somebody else, and hopefully there's a catch and shoot 3-point opportunity in the corners, on the wings. And if there's not, then well, we're just stagnant. And that happens way too often. And of course, with Ryan Rollins getting locked up by Tumani Kamara the past game, that was an example of when he doesn't have it, the whole team doesn't have it. And that's just a very, very scary situation or, position to be in, obviously. And one stat actually that I found that could really, it basically it just says all this stuff about Giannis being out and how the Bucks offensive efficiency just drops off a cliff completely. And of course, we can point to Giannis being out as this, the reason to uh, see these offensive struggles. It's not really the hottest take that I can provide. But it's just the fact that with Giannis on the floor, I forget where I saw it, but the Bucks offensive rating was around a 125, and then with him out of the lineup when he's not on the floor, it drops down to a 104. So with him out, you are not going to win very many games with that kind of formula. So the offense, of course, needs to pick up, and the 3-point shooting has to be great. My opinion, got to just shoot more threes, and that's just kind of a side. Oh my goodness, a side tangent that I've kind of been going for recently. Speaking of hot takes, I think potentially without Giannis on the floor, the Miami Heat may have a good shot at beating the Milwaukee Bucks. And of course, the Miami Heat have been absolutely red hot the past couple of games. And it's really just like the way that I talked about their offense before and how it's just constant driving and cutting and slipping and again the guys just kind of move around and rotate and fill in the spots where the guys had driven in the past to just kind of keep things flowing organically. These guys, the Bucks defenders, are really going to struggle against the guys like Jaime Jaquez Jr., who's to this point maybe the sixth man of the year favorite. He's a guy that's just barreling into opposing perimeter defenders, and no matter who it is, and he's using his physicality, his kind of 100 miles per hour constantly identity, and he's spinning off of guys and just getting to the rim whenever he wants to, throwing shoulders into guys. And the AJ Greens, the Gary Trent Juniors, they are not going to be able to handle that, at least, unless they surprise me and do things that, aside from the things that we've seen from them the entirety of the season so far on the defensive end. That same exact thing is going to keep happening. And that's besides the point, not even talking about Norman Powell, and now Tyler Hero's back. Davion Mitchell's been a very, very solid both playmaking and defending point guard for that team. Khalil Ware is shooting the lights out in recent games. Bam Adebayo's extending his range ever more. So I really, not saying that I don't have hope, but with the Heat's new game plan, I feel like it's exactly what the Bucks don't want to face right now, especially not having a backline defender like the caliber of Giannis available. So going to be a very, very tough matchup for the guys on the perimeter. Aside from Ryan Rollins, you'll hope that if anything, Ryan Rollins can kind of take Norman Powell or Tyler Hero out of the game. But then that means that the Gary Trent Juniors, the Kyle Kuzmas, though he's been a very solid defender this year, I will give him credit. The Kyle Kuzmas, the AJ Greens, Gary Trent Juniors, those kinds of guys will inevitably be matched up with an Andrew Wiggins or, like I said, a Norman Powell. And even a Davion Mitchell can take advantage of mistakes that defenders make. And, if like, he's a guy that can take what the defense gives him. So not really looking forward to things so far, but hopefully the Bucks can surprise me and they can pick up a very, very desperately needed win. against, again, a scalding Miami Heat team. But anyways, that'll be it for me today. Thank you very much for tuning into yet another episode of Bucks Latest presented by Fan Arch. Once again, I've been Dean Simon, and before you go, please leave that like, leave that comment down below, and subscribe. Still trying to get to 2K subs, so I would appreciate that. Also, turn on those post notifications so you don't miss out on future episodes. All right, I will see you guys in the next one.